You have probably said it 100 times, maybe 1,000. You stood in front of the mirror, looked yourself in the eyes, and repeated the words like a sacred ritual. I am wealthy. I am abundant. Money flows to me effortlessly. You said the words with conviction. You followed the instructions. You did everything they told you to do. And nothing changed. That failure, quiet, private, embarrassing, made you wonder whether any of this was real, whether the law of attraction was just a beautiful lie sold to desperate people, whether the universe was even listening at all. But here is what nobody told you. The universe was listening. It just wasn't hearing what you thought you were saying. Because your mouth was saying, I am rich, and your nervous system, your body, your cells, the electromagnetic field radiating from your chest was screaming something completely different. It was broadcasting anxiety, doubt, the low, persistent frequency of someone who desperately needs something they do not yet have. And the field responded, not to your words, to your signal. This is not spirituality. This is physics. And today, you are going to understand exactly why most people's manifestation practice is broken at the hardware level, and precisely how to fix it in 60 seconds. Before we go any deeper, I want you to do something right now. In the comments below, type these exact words. My heart and mind are one. The manifestation is law. Do not skip this. The people who type that phrase today are sending a declaration to their own nervous system, a signal that they are ready to receive a different instruction. Do it now. I'll be here when you get back. Now let's get into the science that changes everything. In 1991, a cardiologist named J. Andrew Armour published research that quietly rewrote what we thought we knew about the human body. He discovered that the heart contains approximately 40,000 neurons, the same type of neurons found in the brain.
He called it the little brain in the heart. And what Armour found was that these neurons don't simply respond to signals from the brain above. They process information independently. They learn, they remember, they feel. And they send more information up to the brain than the brain sends down to the heart. This means that what you feel in your chest is not merely a reaction to what you think in your head. In many cases, it is the opposite. Your heart speaks first. Your brain interprets second. Now take that discovery and place it next to the research coming out of the HeartMath Institute in Boulder Creek, California, one of the most rigorous scientific organizations studying the intersection of human physiology and consciousness. What they found across decades of peer-reviewed research is something that sounds like ancient mysticism until you see the electrocardiograms and the magnetometer readings. The human heart generates the largest electromagnetic field in the body. It is approximately 60 times greater in amplitude than the electrical activity of the brain. And unlike the brain's electromagnetic field, which barely extends beyond the skull, the heart's electromagnetic field radiates outward from the body in every direction. It extends several feet outside your physical form. It is measurable. It is real. And according to the researchers at HeartMath, it is the primary medium through which you interact with the field around you. In other words, your heart is your antenna. Your heart is your broadcast tower. And whatever emotional state your heart is living in right now is the signal you are sending into the quantum field this very moment. This is exactly why you can repeat, I am wealthy 1,000 times and feel nothing change. Because words are processed in the prefrontal cortex. They are stored as language constructs in Broca's area. They are logical operations, electrical impulses in neural tissue. But the subconscious mind does not run on logic. The subconscious mind runs on frequency. And frequency comes from the heart. Here is the precise mechanism that transforms this from philosophy into technology. The subconscious mind, which governs approximately 95% of your behavior, your decisions, your automatic responses, and according to Bruce Lipton's research at Stanford, your very biology. The subconscious mind does not accept information that arrives without an emotional carrier wave. Think of it this way. Your conscious mind is a radio station. It can choose the frequency it wants to broadcast on. It can craft the message. I am abundant. I am healthy. I am loved. But choosing a frequency is not the same as broadcasting on it. For a signal to actually leave the tower, travel through the air, and reach a receiver, it needs power. It needs amplitude. It needs a carrier wave. That carrier wave is emotion. A thought without emotion is a radio station with no electricity. You can have the most perfectly crafted affirmation in the world, the most beautifully articulated vision, the clearest intention. But if there is no emotional power behind it, the signal never leaves the tower. It never reaches the subconscious. It never gets written into the operating system of your biology. This is what the neuroscientist Dr. Candace Pert spent her career documenting in her landmark work, Molecules of Emotion. She discovered that emotions are not abstract psychological states. They are literal chemical signals, neuropeptides and their receptors, that flood the body and communicate with every single cell. Every organ in your body has receptor sites for emotional molecules. Your liver is listening to your emotions. Your immune system is listening to your emotions. The expression of your DNA itself, according to the field of epigenetics, is being shaped by your emotional environment every moment of every day. So when you do an affirmation while your body is saturated in fear, the emotional molecule flooding your system is cortisol, it is adrenaline, it is the chemistry of scarcity and threat. And every cell in your body receives that signal and responds accordingly. Your immune function suppresses, your blood vessels constrict, your neurological resources shift away from the prefrontal cortex, the creative, expansive, forward-thinking part of your brain, and flood instead toward the amygdala, the survival brain, the part that is scanning the horizon for danger. In that neurological state, you cannot create, you can only survive. The field does not receive a signal of abundance, it receives a signal of emergency. Now here is where the science becomes extraordinary. The HeartMath Institute developed a series of protocols through the 1990s and 2000s to measure and train something called heart rate variability. Heart rate variability is not the speed of your heartbeat. It is the variation in time between each consecutive heartbeat. And what the researchers found is that when you are in a state of stress, anxiety, anger, or fear, your heart rate variability becomes erratic and chaotic. The intervals between beats vary in a disorganized, jagged pattern. But when you enter a specific physiological state, a state they named cardiac coherence, something extraordinary occurs. The intervals between heartbeats become smooth, rhythmic, and ordered, like a perfect sine wave, like music. And in that state of cardiac coherence, the body transforms in measurable, dramatic ways. Cortisol drops. DHEA, the vitality and regeneration hormone, rises significantly. The immune system upregulates. Neurological communication between the heart and brain synchronizes.
The prefrontal cortex, your seat of creativity, intuition, expanded vision, and advanced perception, comes back online with full power. And the electromagnetic field of the heart shifts from a chaotic, incoherent broadcast into a clean, coherent, powerful signal. A coherent signal travels further. A coherent signal carries more information. A coherent signal interacts with the quantum field in ways that an incoherent signal simply cannot. This is what the ancient teachers were pointing to when they said the heart is the seat of the soul.
This is what every mystical tradition, from the Sufis to the Kabbalists to the Christian contemplatives, meant when they spoke of praying from the heart. They were not speaking in metaphor. They were describing a physiological technology that modern science is only now beginning to measure and verify. The Kabbalistic tradition speaks of a concept called kavana, a Hebrew word meaning intention, but not merely intellectual intention. It refers to a state where the mind and the heart are fully aligned, where the thought you are thinking is matched by the emotional reality you're experiencing in your body. The Baal Shem Tov, the founder of Hasidic mysticism in the 18th century, taught that a single prayer said with kavana, with complete heartfelt presence and genuine feeling, carries infinitely more power than 1,000 prayers recited mechanically. He was describing cardiac coherence centuries before the HeartMath Institute had instruments capable of measuring it. And the neuroscience confirms it completely. Dr. Joe Dispenza, whose research bridges neuroscience, epigenetics, and quantum mechanics, has spent years documenting what happens when people enter states of elevated emotion combined with precise intention. In his work, and in the documented outcomes of thousands of people who have practiced his protocols, what he consistently finds is that the combination of a clearly defined thought with a genuinely felt elevated emotion produces changes in human biology that conventional medicine struggles to explain. Conditions that were medically documented as permanent, reversing within weeks. Brain scans before and after showing structural neurological change. In his work, and in the documented outcomes of thousands of people who have practiced his protocols, what he consistently finds is that the combination of a clearly defined thought with a genuinely felt elevated emotion produces changes in human biology that conventional medicine struggles to explain. Conditions that were medically documented as permanent, reversing within weeks. Brain scans before and after showing structural neurological change. Blood work reflecting hormonal and immunological shifts that shouldn't be possible on the timelines observed. What is happening at the neurological level when this occurs? Dispenza explains it precisely. The brain does not distinguish between an experience that is actually happening in the physical world and an experience that is vividly imagined with full emotional engagement. When you create an internal experience that is emotionally real, when your heart is generating the feelings of a future reality as if it were happening now, your body begins changing its biology to match that internal environment. Genes that were previously dormant become expressed. Neural connections that did not exist begin to form. The body literally becomes the physical evidence of the mind it is being shaped by. This is the coherence code. It is not wishful thinking. It is not positive psychology dressed in quantum language. It is the precise, reproducible mechanism by which human consciousness interacts with physical reality. And it has 3 essential components that must be present simultaneously. The first component is coherence itself, the synchronized, ordered state of the heart and nervous system. This is the carrier wave without which nothing transmits. You can have the most powerful intention in the world, but if your heart is broadcasting chaos, the signal reaches nothing. The second component is intention, a clear, specific, emotionally compelling vision of the reality you are choosing, not a vague desire. Not a hope that dissolves under examination, a defined, sensory-rich internal experience of a desired outcome. The brain requires precision. The subconscious needs to know exactly what reality it is being instructed to seek, to recognize, and to move toward. The third component is the elevated emotion, the felt sense of gratitude, of love, of joy, of expansion, of wonder that makes the intention real to the body before the body has experienced it in physical form. This is what Dispenza calls the feeling of the future. This is what HeartMath calls coherent emotional activation. This is what the ancient teachers meant by kavana. This is what Neville Goddard was pointing at in 1944 when he wrote simply that feeling is the secret. Not positive thinking, feeling, the actual embodied, physiologically real sensation of a chosen reality experienced as present fact. When coherence, clear intention, and elevated emotion are present simultaneously, you have sealed what the quantum physicists describe as a coherent information signal into the field. You have done something immeasurably more powerful than repeating a sentence in front of a mirror. You have changed the electromagnetic broadcast of your biology. And the field, which is not separate from you, which is in fact the extended expression of your own consciousness moving through space, responds to the new signal. So, how do you actually do this? How do you move from understanding this intellectually to practicing it in a way that produces real results in your daily life? Here is the exact 60-second protocol that synthesizes the HeartMath research, the Dispenza methodology, and the ancient practices of heart-centered intention. You begin by sitting quietly, not in any special position, not in formal meditation posture. Simply sit and bring your full attention to the center of your chest. Not your thoughts about your chest, not a concept of your heart.
Your actual felt physical attention on the space around your heart, as if you were shining an inner light directly on it. Now you slow your breathing. This step is not optional. Breathing is the fastest voluntary pathway to shifting your autonomic nervous system from sympathetic activation, the fight or flight state, to parasympathetic activation, the rest and receive state. You breathe in slowly for 5 seconds, you breathe out slowly for 5 seconds. This rhythmic, heart-focused breathing pattern is one of the most well-documented methods for shifting heart rate variability from chaotic to coherent. In as few as 3 complete breath cycles, measurable changes in HRV are detectable on monitoring equipment. As you continue this slow, rhythmic breathing centered on your heart, you begin to recall, not imagine, but genuinely recall, a real memory of gratitude, love, or joy, something true, a moment when you felt moved by beauty or connection or grace, a child's laughter, the feeling of being completely seen and loved, a sunset that stopped you in your tracks, a moment of unexpected kindness that arrived when you needed it most. It doesn't matter what memory you choose. What matters is that it produces an authentic, felt emotional response in your body as you focus on it. This is the critical distinction. You are not trying to manufacture an emotion. You are retrieving one that already exists in your cellular memory. Your body has lived that experience. It knows exactly what those emotional molecules feel like. And as you breathe and focus on that genuine feeling, your heart rate variability begins to shift in real time. The signal becomes coherent. You will know you have reached coherence because something in your chest begins to feel, there is no more precise word for it, open, warm, spacious, as if a tightness that had been holding in the center of your chest quietly releases. This is not a metaphor. This is your physiology changing in the present moment. Once you feel that openness, and it may come in 30 seconds, it may require 2 minutes, but it will come. Now you introduce the intention, not sentences, not affirmations, a living, sensory, complete experience of the reality you are choosing. You see it, you feel the texture of it, you sense the weight and temperature of that life. And most crucially, you feel the emotions of it already, the gratitude of someone who has already received, the peace of someone who is already whole, the quiet certainty of someone who has already arrived.
You are not petitioning a distant universe for something you lack. You are communicating from inside the field, in the language the field recognizes, which is coherent electromagnetic information encoded with specific emotional content. You hold this state for 60 seconds. The research suggests that 60 seconds of genuine, coherent emotional activation is sufficient to produce measurable shifts in the body's hormonal and neurological state. You don't need an hour of perfect meditation. You need 60 seconds of real coherence. Then you release it, not from defeat or resignation, but from the confidence of someone who has already sent the signal and trusts the process. You breathe normally, you return to your day, and you understand that what you just did was not a ritual or a ceremony, it was a transmission. Now, there is one more dimension I need to share with you, because it separates the people who get lasting results from the people who remain permanently impressed by the information without changing anything. Your body is addicted to its emotions. Pert's research, extended significantly by Dispenza's work, reveals that cells literally develop additional receptor sites for the emotional chemicals they are most frequently exposed to.
If your nervous system has been running on chronic anxiety and low-grade stress for years, if cortisol and adrenaline have been the dominant molecules in your body's internal environment, your cells have built a physiological infrastructure for those molecules. They crave them. And when you sit down to practice coherence, the body will resist, not because you are doing it incorrectly, because your biology is habituated to the frequency of the old identity. This is why people report that the first days of genuine practice feel artificial, forced, or performative. The body is not performing. It is running a deeply established program that says, "This is not who I am." And that program is not stored only in the mind. It is encoded in the receptor sites of your cells. This is also why intellectual understanding alone accomplishes nothing. You can grasp the HeartMath research completely. You can explain cardiac coherence with precision and sophistication, and your daily experience can remain exactly the same, because information without embodied practice does not rewire the body. The rewiring happens in the practice, one day at a time, one 60-second coherence window at a time, until the new signal becomes the default broadcast, until gratitude and expansion become the chemistry your cells are organized around instead of anxiety and scarcity, until the internal transmission and the external reality are no longer speaking different languages. The psalmist wrote in Psalm 37, "Delight yourself in the presence of the living, and he will give you the desires of your heart." The Hebrew word used there is ta'anag, which means to be soft, to be pliable, to be in a state of open and receptive ease. It is a description of a body that is not clenched, a heart that is not bracing, a nervous system that has moved from defense to creation, a physiological state of coherence. And from that state, the desires of the heart, not the demands of the anxious mind, but the deepest, truest desires of the coherent heart, move from the invisible into the visible. You are not broken. Your practice has not failed because the universe has dismissed you, or because the law does not apply to you, or because you are somehow less capable of this than other people. It has not produced what you wanted because there has been a signal mismatch. Your mouth spoke one thing, your electromagnetic field broadcast another, and the field, which does not respond to what you want, but to what you are, delivered the signal it was actually receiving. The coherence code is the correction of that mismatch. When your thought and your feeling carry the same information, when the electricity of your intention and the magnetism of your genuine emotion combine into a single, unified electromagnetic wave, you have created what physics calls a coherent field interaction. You have written a new instruction into the quantum substrate of your reality. And reality has no alternative but to respond. Not because of magic, because of law, because this is the architecture of the universe, because consciousness is not a passenger in a physical world. Consciousness is what the physical world is continuously being constructed from. And the electromagnetic expression of that consciousness, your coherent, emotionally alive, precisely intended signal, is the most creative force operating in your reality right now. You have access to this in the next 60 seconds, not after more preparation, not after you resolve every doubt or heal every wound or build the perfect routine, right now, with the heart you already have. Go back to the comment you left at the beginning of this video. Read your own words. My heart and mind are one. The manifestation is law. That is not a sentence. That is a biological declaration. That is the beginning of a new signal.
That is coherence beginning to establish itself as your new default frequency. Your biology is listening. The field is listening. The only question has never been whether they will respond. The only question is whether you are finally willing to send a signal worth responding to. Now you know exactly how.